There comes a time in every man's life when he must stop pretending he's confused. There comes a moment when indecision is no longer ignorance but cowardice. And if that moment has arrived in your life, then I will speak to the part of you that's tired of waiting, tired of overthinking, tired of explaining failure, and ready finally to act. Understand this: indecision is a form of self-sabotage, and the world does not wait for the hesitant. It rewards only the man who decides and acts with relentless clarity and emotional detachment. The greatest battle in your life will never be fought against an enemy on the outside. It will be the one you fight or avoid inside your own mind. And until you conquer that battlefield, you will remain a slave, not to others, but to your own reactions, impulses, and fears. Let us begin with a simple but terrifying truth. Most people live their entire lives reacting to life instead of directing it. They wake up in the morning, and from the moment their eyes open, they are owned by their emotions, by the opinions of others, by the illusions of comfort, and by the momentum of yesterday's bad decisions. They think they are thinking, but they are merely remembering and reacting. If you are to rise above the masses, you must become the exception. And that exception begins with focus, a deep, unshakable, emotionally detached focus that turns thought into action and action into destiny. Let me tell you something few dare to say. Success is not for the emotional. Success is for the man who can stay calm while others panic, who can think when others react, who can commit when others hesitate. What is emotional detachment? It is not coldness. It is not apathy. It is the disciplined refusal to let temporary emotions sabotage permanent progress. You must understand the law. Emotion without direction leads to destruction. But emotion under control becomes power in its purest form. Think of a river. A wild, untamed river floods and destroys, but that same water, channeled through dams and turbines, creates electricity that lights up cities. So it is with your emotions. Do not suppress them, control them. Do not deny them, direct them. The man who cannot control his emotions cannot control his future. And so, I say to you, master your mind, or your mind will master you. Let me introduce you to a forgotten truth, one that separates the successful from the stuck, the master from the victim. The law of mental neutrality. This law states that before every decision, there exists a sacred space, a gap, a moment of neutrality, where the mind can either rise above emotion and choose power, or collapse into reaction and choose weakness. This gap is where greatness lives. It is the birthplace of destiny. The average man never sees this gap. He is too busy reacting to fear, to anger, to distraction, to offense. But the focused man, the disciplined thinker, sees the gap, steps into it, and decides from power, not pain. Do not be deceived. The world will try to seduce you into emotional chaos. Social media will bait you. Gossip will tempt you. Circumstances will challenge you. But the calm mind is the superior weapon. If I could give you only one principle to dominate your life and fortune, it would be this: think, then act, not feel, then react. Understand the difference. It will separate you from 95% of the population. The moment you begin acting from thought instead of emotion, you rise above circumstance. You begin to lead your life instead of be led by it. You stop chasing clarity and become clarity. You stop seeking permission and embody purpose. Let me remind you of another timeless law, the law of definite purpose. The man who does not have a clearly defined aim is a ship without a rudder. He will drift and call it fate. But it was never fate, it was his refusal to decide. Do you know why most people never commit to a goal? It is not because they lack vision. It is because they lack emotional discipline. They fear criticism. They fear failure. They fear isolation. And fear, unchallenged, becomes identity. But you are not here to remain ordinary. You are here to master the mechanics of thought, the laws of achievement, the art of inner command. You are here to become dangerous to your doubts. You must train yourself to think with precision, to act with decisiveness, and to feel with control. This is what it means to become a master of yourself. And now, let me speak of autosuggestion, the daily discipline of feeding your mind the thoughts you wish to live by. This is not mysticism, it is science. Your subconscious mind, the silent engine of your behavior, does not respond to logic. It responds to repetition. And so, you must repeat to yourself every day with clarity, with feeling, with focus, the man you are becoming. Say it aloud, write it down, see it in your mind, feel it in your bones. You are not waiting for the world to crown you. You are becoming the man who commands his fate. You cannot afford to let your mind run on autopilot. You cannot afford to casually consume information, drift through conversation, scroll through opinions. You must take control of your attention, for attention is the currency of your future. He who controls his attention controls his reality. This is why I say, focus yourself to take action and your life will change. Not tomorrow, not when you feel like it, now. Because nothing changes until you act. And action without focus is waste. But action with focus, that is creation, that is power. That is how empires are built, not with luck, but with clarity of purpose and consistency of thought. Do you wish to be unstoppable? Then control your inner world. The man who commands his emotions, disciplines his mind, and focuses his energy, that man is already unstoppable, even if the world doesn't know his name yet. But I will tell you this, it will. You see, greatness does not announce itself with fanfare. It begins quietly in the discipline of the mind, in the stillness of decisions made without emotion, in the silence of a man who refuses to be swayed by the winds of opinion. The man of focus walks alone before he is followed. He commits before he is applauded. He conquers himself before he conquers the world. Let me tell you something the masses do not understand. You do not rise by feeling worthy, you rise by acting worthy. You do not become disciplined by reading books on discipline. You become disciplined by doing what must be done, especially when you do not feel like doing it. The emotional man waits for motivation. The disciplined man creates momentum. There is a cost to mastering yourself. You must kill your excuses. You must confront the parts of you that flinch when discomfort appears. You must walk into the fire of growth without waiting for applause. But know this, the price of mastery is temporary pain. The price of mediocrity is permanent regret. And so I ask you, which will you choose? Let us speak now of mental toughness, not the shallow image of grit you've been sold by modern slogans, but the real kind. The kind forged in solitude, carved by consistency, strengthened through self-command. Mental toughness is the byproduct of self-respect. A man who honors his word to himself becomes immovable, unshakable, incorruptible. He does not require a perfect mood. He does not require ideal circumstances. He does not beg for motivation. He is the cause, not the effect. Understand this. The outer world reflects the inner one. You cannot expect financial abundance while thinking like a pauper. You cannot expect peace while harboring chaos. You cannot expect respect while reacting like a child. Every time you react emotionally to something beneath you, you tell the world exactly where your power ends. But every time you remain calm in the face of provocation, disciplined in the face of temptation, focused in the face of chaos, you announce to the universe, I am the master here. And the universe obeys the mind that commands itself. Let me now speak to you about the power of calmness, the rarest power in the modern world. People confuse loudness for power, but loudness is often a mask for insecurity. True power is calm. True power whispers and still commands attention. True power walks slowly and is never late. True power doesn't need to prove itself. It proves itself by existing. The man who is calm cannot be baited. He cannot be shaken. He sees 10 moves ahead because he is not reacting to the last move behind. And where does this calmness come from? It is not a gift. It is trained, built, forged through repetition, through mastery over emotion, through the daily act of returning to purpose every time chaos calls. Let me be clear, every man is tempted to react, but only the powerful man chooses not to. And that is where success begins, not in outcomes, but in identity. You cannot consistently act like a king while thinking like a slave. So we must confront the inner world first. We must clean the mental house, take out the clutter of complaint, sweep away the dust of excuses, and reorganize the furniture of thought to serve us, not sabotage us. Do not believe that the battle is external. It never was. The only enemy you will ever fight is the version of you that refuses to evolve. The weak voice in your head that says, not today. The fear that tells you you're not ready. The memory that whispers you failed before. Slay them. Slay them with focus, with repetition, with action. Because you are not your feelings, you are your focus. Let me give you a truth that will offend the lazy, but set the disciplined free. Success is not difficult, it is inconvenient. That's why most avoid it. To rise, you must be willing to be misunderstood. To build, you must be willing to destroy your comfort. To lead, you must be willing to walk alone. And above all, to succeed, you must learn to detach emotionally from what does not serve you. This is the secret I wish I could engrave into the mind of every man who has potential but lacks progress. Attachment is the root of weakness. Detachment is the soil of strength. Detach from the need to be liked and you'll speak with truth. Detach from the need to feel good and you'll do what is necessary. Detach from the outcome and you'll master the process. But this detachment is not passive. It is the most active mental discipline there is. It is focus purified. It is action without emotional sabotage. It is self-respect in motion. And when you live this way, when you think, move, and decide like a man who owns himself, you become magnetic. You attract opportunity, respect, resources, and results not by chasing them, but by commanding yourself to be worthy of them. I do not care what your past has been. I do not care what circumstances you were born into. I care only what you decide now. And if you decide to focus yourself, discipline your mind, command your emotions, then hear me clearly, you will not be stopped. Even if you are knocked down, you will rise with more focus. Even if you are doubted, you will proceed with more silence. Even if you are delayed, you will build momentum in the shadows. Because when a man rules his mind, he becomes the architect of his future. Now, let us speak plainly. The average man lives enslaved not because the chains are visible, but because he refuses to recognize that those chains are emotional. He is addicted to comfort, approval, and distraction. He confuses stimulus with progress, reaction with action, and motion with momentum. But you, if you are to rise, must understand the timeless law of cause and effect. Every result in your life is the direct offspring of a thought. And every thought, when left unchecked by discipline, breeds either failure or fortune. Do not be deceived. Your environment does not create your mind. Your mind creates your environment. Change begins not with your surroundings, but with your standards. The moment you raise the standard of what you tolerate from yourself, you will no longer need motivation. You will be governed by principle. And what are those principles? Let us revisit them, not as mere theory, but as weapons of the will, forged to cut through every excuse, every weakness, every whisper of hesitation. 1. Definiteness of purpose. Without purpose, the mind becomes a battlefield for distraction, but the man who defines his aim eliminates confusion. He is no longer trying to succeed, he is marching toward it. With purpose, energy multiplies, resistance fades, and time becomes your servant. Ask yourself now, what is the one aim I would pursue if I removed all fear? That is the beginning of your destiny. 2. Self-discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It is proof that you respect your future more than your impulses. Discipline is doing what must be done, especially when it's uncomfortable. Without it, all dreams rot in the graveyard of almost. The man who builds self-discipline builds freedom. He controls what he eats, how he thinks, what he says when he wakes, how he reacts, because he understands that he is the cause of his reality. 3. Autosuggestion. You are speaking to yourself all day. The only question is, are you speaking from weakness or power? Every self-defeating sentence you whisper to yourself is an act of spiritual treason. Your mind is programmable, and if you don't take command of it, society, fear, and your past will. So speak with command. Say it until you believe it. Repeat it until you become it. I am calm. I am focused. I am unstoppable. And say it when you feel the opposite. That is when it counts. 4. Mastery over emotion. Emotion is the fire of the mind. It can heat a forge or it can burn a house down. Emotion is not the enemy, lack of direction is. When emotion arises, pause, breathe, observe, respond. There is no virtue in rage. There is no wisdom in panic. But in composure, there is divine power. When you master emotion, you master time. You no longer waste hours on arguments, days on doubts, weeks on waiting. You move deliberately. 5. Accurate thinking. Your ability to separate fact from fiction is your sword against fear. Most people do not think, they feel, and then justify. But you, if you are to command your life, must think with precision. Do not assume. Do not guess. Do not follow. Ask, is this true? Is this useful? Does this move me forward? And do not believe every thought you have. You are not your thoughts. You are the chooser of thoughts. You are the editor, not the victim of your inner dialogue. If you believe you are helpless, you will act helpless. If you believe you are capable, you will act with power. The difference is not the world, it is the belief. Now hear this with the seriousness it deserves. You are not confused. You are undisciplined. You are not unlucky. You are unfocused. You are not incapable. You are inconsistent. And that is good news because all of these can be corrected starting now. You do not need more time, you need more commitment. You do not need more motivation, you need more standards. You do not need permission, you need command. And that command begins internally. It begins by looking your weakest self in the face and saying, you no longer run this house. No. The habits that have enslaved you, they must die. The fears that have slowed you, they must be exposed. The excuses that have robbed you, they must be confronted. Because one decision, fully committed, fully embodied, fully enforced, can make up for years of delay. And so I say again, focus yourself to take action and your life will change. Take action not from chaos, but from clarity. Take action not to please others, but to respect yourself. Take action not when you feel like it, but because you said you would. And this is the principle I want you to write upon the walls of your mind. A man who acts with focus becomes a force. A man who delays, doubts, reacts, becomes forgotten. The choice is always yours. You were not born weak. You were conditioned to settle. You were not born scattered. You were never trained to focus. You were not born to react. You were meant to create. And every second you waste, every excuse you entertain feeds the old self that must die for the new one to rise. So let today be the funeral for your hesitation. Let this moment be the burial ground for the man you no longer wish to be. Bury him and rise with vengeance. Because from this point forward, you no longer wait, you act. You no longer react, you lead. You no longer explain, you execute. And your life will never be the same. From this point forward, you walk differently. You walk not with doubt in your eyes, but with decision in your spine. You speak not to impress, but to express the truth that has been sleeping inside you. You act not from fear, but from faith, not blind faith, but earned faith, forged through discipline, decision, and the daily mastery of self. Let me make something absolutely clear. No external enemy has ever destroyed a man faster than his own indecision. No lack of money, support, or education has ever ruined a man faster than his own lack of focus. Focus is the spiritual scalpel that slices through distraction, disorganization, and delay. It is the weapon of the elite. It is the dividing line between men who try and men who do. And how does one sharpen this focus? Through daily acts of war against your lower self. You do not become focused by reading about it. You become focused by cutting the cord between your goals and your excuses again and again until nothing remains but will. Will, not whim. Clarity, not confusion. Standards, not suggestions. You must say to yourself each morning, today I will not negotiate with my weakness. I will not consult my emotions before I act. I will not beg for energy, I will summon it through action. And then you must act, not once, not when convenient, but as a way of life. Now let us examine a higher truth, one that may disturb the complacent but ignite the committed. You don't need more time. You need fewer distractions. Time is not your enemy. Fragmentation is. Every notification, every excuse, every unimportant task you say yes to it bleeds your future dry by 1,000 cuts. The world is full of men who are always busy but never productive. Always moving but never arriving, always reacting but never commanding. And they remain stuck not for lack of talent but for lack of priority. Understand this. Every time you allow your attention to be stolen, your destiny is postponed. Every time you say yes to distraction, you say no to mastery. Every time you react emotionally, you hand your power to someone else. But you were not born to live like that. You were born to lead your mind like a general commands an army strategically, deliberately, and without apology. So let me give you this next principle, one that will separate you from 99% of men. The principle of thought first. Before you speak, think. Before you spend, think. Before you react, think. Before you move, think. Before you decide, think. But not endlessly, not obsessively, not in circles. No, accurately, swiftly, clearly. The power is not in endless thought. It is in precise thought followed by bold action. Because thought without action is the illusion of progress. And action without thought is the pathway to ruin. But thought plus action? That is how kings are crowned. That is how nations are built. That is how lives are transformed. And that is how you will rise if you choose to focus yourself, train your mind, and rule your emotions. Let us now confront the final enemy, the comfort of delay. You know the one, the voice that whispers, tomorrow, next week, after I feel ready, once I get everything in order. Lies. Elegant, soothing, socially acceptable lies. The future does not reward the prepared, it rewards the courageous. Because readiness is not something you wait for. It is something you earn through movement. So act now, while your hands still tremble. Act now, before the world approves. Act now, before the excuses multiply. Act now, while the old self still resists, because every step forward kills him a little more. Do not fear discomfort. It is the tuition of transformation. Do not fear solitude. It is where vision is born. Do not fear failure. It is how power introduces itself to the world. And never again confuse stillness for stagnation. There is a stillness that is weak and a stillness that is deadly. The stillness of conscious control, of mental alignment, of a man who waits not out of fear, but out of strategy. You must become that kind of still. Not passive, but prepared. Not frozen, but focused. Because every man who ever created a legacy worth remembering had to first disappear from the noise, organize his mind, master his emotions, and then emerge as a storm of purpose. And if you do not yet feel that storm inside you, then you must create it. Fan the flame, feed the fire, train the force. Start with one thought, then command it. One habit, then repeat it. One choice, then enforce it. And your life will begin to bend around your will. Because the world does not give power to the man who wants it. It gives power to the man who commands it through focus and relentless action. So, I say to you, not as a preacher, not as a writer, but as a voice inside your mind that demands greatness. Focus yourself to take action, and your life will change. Not tomorrow, not in theory, not after approval, but now in the silence of self-respect. In the discipline of daily execution, in the courage to kill the version of you that plays small. You are no longer a slave to the moment. You are no longer waiting for conditions. You are no longer hoping to feel ready. You are becoming ready by acting. You are creating readiness through clarity. You are forging destiny by mastering focus. And your life, when directed by purpose, protected by discipline, and guided by emotional detachment, becomes unbreakable. There is a sacred transformation that occurs the moment a man stops arguing with reality, the moment he stops trying to feel like it and begins to act like it, the moment he stops waiting for the world to be fair, the economy to be perfect, or people to believe in him, and instead declares war on every distraction, every emotional excuse, every mental weakness that has delayed his destiny. This transformation is not loud, it is not seen. It happens in silence, beneath the surface, in the unseen hours, when a man looks at the mirror and says, no more. No more living for comfort. No more reacting to circumstances. No more lowering my standards to protect my laziness. Because, understand this, the mind will serve whatever master is most consistent. If you consistently feed it excuses, it will obey them. But if you consistently feed it clarity, repetition, vision, action, it will align with power. The subconscious is loyal but not intelligent. It does not question what you repeat. It simply absorbs it and manifests it. So, what are you telling your mind? What stories do you rehearse in silence? If you say, I always procrastinate, your mind accepts the assignment. If you say, I'm not disciplined, your mind builds that reality. If you say, I can't focus, your mind confirms it. But if you begin saying with fire, with clarity, with authority, I am in command, I act with discipline, I am calm under pressure, I finish what I start, I am immune to emotional sabotage, then your subconscious mind will begin to shape your behavior accordingly. Repetition is not optional, it is law. And you must use it daily to build mental armor because the world is designed to fracture your focus. You are bombarded with noise, with fear, with opinions, with seductive distractions. If you do not control your inputs, you will never control your outcomes. So guard your environment like your future depends on it, because it does. Do not keep company with complainers. Do not keep media that weakens your mind. Do not entertain thoughts that insult your potential. This is not about arrogance. It is about urgency, because life is short, time is scarce, and your legacy is being written every second you hesitate. You must become the kind of man who says, I do not tolerate mental weakness even in myself. That sentence, if lived, will change everything. It will change how you start your day. It will change how you handle stress. It will change what you say no to, what you pursue, how you lead, how you build, how you think, and most importantly, it will change how you feel about yourself. Because when a man begins to respect himself, when he no longer allows emotions to steer the ship, when he stops negotiating with the lower self, he walks differently. He speaks differently. His presence becomes a weapon not of volume, but of clarity. He does not need validation because he validates himself through action. He does not need approval because his standards come from within. He does not need to announce who he is because his results do it for him. And that kind of man becomes unstoppable not because the world clears the path, but because he clears it himself, one step, one thought, one action at a time. You must become this man, not by pretending, not by hoping, not by consuming more inspiration, but by becoming the weapon through discipline, repetition, detachment, and ruthless focus on what must be done. Let this be the day you walk away from the weaker version of yourself, not with drama, not with noise, but with finality, because your destiny is not waiting. Your future does not respond to someday, and the version of you that wins is already within you, suffocating beneath years of hesitation, emotion, and distraction. Set him free, and your life will never be the same. Do not wait for inspiration. It is fickle. It comes and goes like the wind. You do not build empires on weather. You build them on will. Do not wait for perfect timing. That illusion has killed more dreams than failure ever has. The perfect time is not found, it is forged in the fire of action. And do not wait for the approval of others. That approval is rented and revoked at their convenience. But the approval of a man who has mastered his own mind, that is earned in sweat, sacrifice, and silence. Your focus must be so sharp that it cuts through every reason to stop. Your vision must be so clear that it blinds every excuse. Your identity must be so fortified by discipline that no chaos, no setback, no betrayal can shake it. This is the price of power, but it is also the freedom of the few, because the man who commands his thoughts commands the very substance of his destiny. He knows that success is not something to be found. It is something to be created first in the unseen world of the mind, then carved into reality by action. He knows that every emotion is a test not to be obeyed, but to be interrogated. He knows that his reaction to pain determines whether it becomes weakness or fuel. And above all, he knows this. The world bows not to the loudest man, but to the one who moves with focused, detached, disciplined precision. So what will you be? Will you be another man ruled by impulse, led by the emotions of the hour, distracted by the irrelevant, defeated by delay? Or will you be the man who rises? The man who no longer looks outside himself for strength. The man who no longer hides behind potential. the man who no longer makes peace with mediocrity, the man who no longer explains why he hasn't, but executes until he does. Let the old self die here quietly, completely. The self that waited, the self that feared, the self that talked more than he acted. And in his place let a new self rise. A self governed by law, not luck. A self commanded by vision, not validation. A self built on focus, forged in action, freed by discipline. This man does not need attention. He commands results. This man does not crave sympathy. He builds legacy. This man does not chase outcomes. He moves with purpose and lets the world adjust to him. Now listen closely. All your dreams, all your plans, all your visions of the life you want, they are not waiting in some faraway land. They are waiting inside the man you refuse to fully become. They are hidden behind the door of consistent, disciplined, focused action. Not action once, not action when it feels good, but action as identity. Because the man who builds a new world must first destroy the old mind. He must walk into the silence of his own hesitation and plant the flag of discipline. He must look at every temptation to delay and say, "You no longer run this empire." He must become the one who acts when others think, who moves when others moan, who finishes when others fantasize. And he must do it with such calm certainty that the world, even if it resists him, cannot help but submit to him. That is who you must become. Not because it is easy, not because it is fashionable, but because your soul will never rest in mediocrity. You were born to command your life, not react to it. And if you forget everything else, remember this: the man who focuses himself ruthlessly, daily, unapologetically, is the man who changes his life. You are no longer a servant of reaction. You are no longer a hostage to fear. You are no longer the victim of emotion. You are the architect of your fate, the general of your mind, the master of your minutes, the force that bends the future to the will of focus. So, rise, think with clarity, act with discipline, detach with power, and build the life that no man and no excuse can take from you. Because this is the truth that only the few understand. When you focus yourself to take action, your life will change. Not later, not someday, but now. If you decide it, if you commit to it, if you become it, and the world quietly, slowly, then suddenly will follow the man who first followed himself.